7:30.
Melissa is super sick. She is home.
Yeah, and Alyssa won't be here till 6:30 plus.
Alyssa's picking up her
Yeah.
daughter, but I think she'll be early because practice got done a little early.
Okay.
Oh, no, never mind. She's got a little one. I don't know what time their practice ends.
She said about 6:35 somewhere. in there.
Christine might be joining us from Zoom.
I didn't send out a Zoom link. Because I didn't.
It's on
have it. It's on the city.
It's on the city
Okay.
thing, yeah.
On the calendar, yeah.
On the calendar, yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
all right.
City thing.
Christine's here with us.
Okay.
Ryland,
Yes,
the electric bills are in. So I think I'm coming in Thursday morning. I have a meeting at church at 9 and then I'll come in after that. So I should be here around 10:30.
Thursday worked great for me,
Would that work for you?
yeah.
Okay, so
I
we,
forgot to call Robert, I'll call him, make a note.
well, we have ample time then. So, but I'll plan on being here around 10:30 and I'll get those.
Put it on the calendar.
Yeah, Renee and I can do
Hi, Christine.
those bills.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Christine.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. So how long was Melissa in the hospital?
Just one day, it sounds like.
Okay.
She sounds awful. I'm worried me how she sounded. We were talking, but we did not like it.
Well, I see her son and husband had been salmon fishing, so she must have been home with that.
Wow, salmon fishing.
Yeah,
She
like
was in the
Michigan.
morning. Yeah, I'm gonna make her some food and bring it to her tomorrow.
Thank you.
Probably not hungry though.
So did you folks get home okay?
Yeah, they did. Thanks for asking. Oh, okay.
Open this? Who's this from?
Somebody's purse, that's yours? Oh,
The big tropical storm down there almost became a hurricane. but,
Right.
It hasn't yet, so that's good. Hi there.
Hi, Joe.
The gang's all back together.
Gang's all here.
Yes.
No one's sitting by the brownies if you'd like them.
Reserved to somebody. I have to scoot at like 7:30, just to have that. Me too.
Okay,
Me too.
I've got another meeting right after this, so.
Yeah. So did you hear that, Rylan? Aaron, we both have to go at 7:30.
sounds like you could time stop.
Oh, thank you.
How are you?
Good.
You survived the birthday?
Oh, man, I did. Yes, I did. I survived it. Nice and easy. It was a nice and easy.
Whose birthday was it? Thank you.
It was mine.
Oh,
I turned
yours.
40.
Big one.
Woohoo.
Mhm.
30?
No, no, we were gonna do a big shindig and I was like, I just would rather not. So, but I did just get back from a big conference in Atlanta, so that's why I'm just being careful.
I love birthdays.
Do you?
I love them. Yeah.
You celebrate?
I hope, every chance I get. My husband was the oldest of 7 and he had rarely any birthdays when he was little. His family was not of the means to have a lot of
Okay.
birthdays. So I made a point, I says, we're having birthday month.
Aw,
And
fun.
we celebrated all month long. Every weekend we did something special. Did a
Oh, that's
trip or-
awesome.
Yeah, yeah, you know. At first he was a little bit flustered by it and then he thought, then he started talking, he says, it's my birthday month.
It's so fun. Do you do the same for you then as well?
Oh, no, no. But I was always pretty creative at doing something. Right?
So I'm gonna read this. This is from the township to the Gold Rush Committee. Thank you from the township for agreeing to move the meeting. So we could use the meeting room on the second Mondays. Good job with Gold Rush. John and I were there selling honey at the bee shed. Lucy Shanyo.
Oh, fun.
Enjoy the brownies.
Oh, yeah.
So that's just, yeah, that's a reminder about starting in January. We'll keep our 6 o'clock meeting, but we'll be meeting upstairs. room up there, so the township can use this for their township meeting for the second or the first, second Monday of the month.
Are you gonna be able to keep track of?
We'll bring our laptops.
Melissa pops in. Just keep it, yeah, keep it there, so we can see if someone pops up.
Sure.
Who just walked in? Oh, you get the brownie seat.
Take their names.
Thank you again for picking up Sophia.
I have leftovers.
That's good though. Hey, you're here early.
Yeah. I leave early. Yeah, well, all of us are leaving early, so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so that worked out really
Yeah,
well.
really.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is there an extra agenda over here?
There's another chair too.
I think there's two of them here.
She's got these two,
Oh, yeah, I got it. Okay, I got them.
so she's got two of this one.
There you go.
She's got two of the September one.
I'm excited.
Yeah, we only need one between us.
My daughter's
Well,
still talking
gonna be
about
here.
the 5K, right?
Corey,
And I got the pictures today, or earlier from, yeah, that he was taking, and I shared them. So I'm gonna
Cool.
make a file on the website and Facebook. pages.
Usually all you have to do
Super
is
cute pictures of
Push a button.
her, of course. She's gonna be a runner now, I feel like. That's like-
It's on the other side. There's one on the
She
side.
she keeps talking about how she did it and how Dana organized it, and then she talks about how she got a
Hey, Corey.
popsicle at the end, so.
Aw.
hey, Corey.
Hey, hi.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
And she's more excited about the popsicle than the medal.
Can you get it?
Yep. She
Thank you,
is,
Robin.
Excuse me.
but we still have the medal, she's very thrilled.
Do you have an agenda? Thought the agenda was over. Oh. Already got a new one.
Yes, we are.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Oh.
Oh, I'm gonna bring up the tomorrow.
Yeah, I definitely can too.
All right, go ahead and get started. Thanks for coming. I think we have a,
Everyone, but Melissa,
and
Christine's
except for
on.
Christine and Melissa, yeah.
well, Christine's here on Zoom.
She was at the gas station when I went by. So I assume she's not coming or?
Christine?
Melissa,
Oh, Melissa.
I heard she's a little under the weather.
Oh, I thought that was her vehicle. Maybe it wasn't.
I doubt it. I don't think she's gotten out of bed in a long time, except to be in the hospital.
All right, we have an agenda in front of us. It's kind of similar to the other one, but at the same time, mostly updates. And we have a hard stop at 7:30. I think everybody's got 2 or 3 people that need to leave. So we'll discuss as much as we can and carry over till October. So we have, take a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Second,
Lindsay?
Just say your name when you say it, so I don't have to look up and figure out who it was. Thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approved. August 9th meeting notes. Are there.
I move to approve the meeting notes from August 9th.
Lizzie, second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Melissa,
All right, and so.
did you bring some? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I had some copies, but.
Oh, you do, okay. It is, I have just a few to share, so if you want. Thanks. Brianna has more. Sure.
Thank you.
All right, so the final reconciliation, I think all the things have been paid right now.
No,
No?
we have Arctic Ice yet to pay.
Okay.
We have the electric bill to pay. That's gonna be, both of those will be a couple of grand. I mean, Trying to think of anything else that might be outstanding, but those are two biggies. There might be some advertising for 20.
Okay, so it's the accounting as we have it as of tonight, we have $20,621 reconciled in our checkbook balance. That includes the 5K profit. So the top part was just a breakout of the 5K. I think Dana asked if I could do this to show for next year, you know, if we want to look at items, written supplies or anything, and, you know, set a budget or just kind of know how the race total broke out. The sponsors, we have 2,600 that we had tracked. So we don't have a separate account. We're just tracking on a separate, you know, spreadsheet. So I came up with, we should have $2,700 based on the 20 number of sponsors on our shirts, but I don't know if we got deposited in another spreadsheet or.
It was weird, because one person didn't want any.
RV buy, sell RV.
No.
I don't know that got deposited in 5K.
Oh,
Buy, sell RV,
I think
200.
it got two different places,
Oh,
100 in that one and 100 in the, I
okay,
think, maybe not.
then we would be short 200. So anyway, we might want to look at reconciling that.
But then
Buy,
stage
sell, RV.
and stuff, or, I'm sorry, the
Bell did 500.
Bell did 500.
Yeah, I'm including that. So we had 22 sponsors.
Did you ever get the Potbellies check?
Yes, we just got that.
Okay,
Willow Creek was the only one I wasn't familiar with. I don't know who did that one.
Lori did.
You did,
But those, there would have been 300.
right up like early on?
Uh,
No,
We did the all buy sell RV, the $200 right into the 5K.
okay.
Oh, both of it. Okay, so then we are short too.
It was a single deposit.
Would have been 3 checks.
Nope, it would have been
I'm
one
sorry,
check.
one check,
300.
300.
So if we're missing, we were just talking about this before. If we're missing it, then I owe it to you. Because I can't find where I
That's right.
wrote it out.
Where would
And
it
it
have
would
been
have been
from, Lori?
from Ra and Willow and Ronalda Lancaster, the real estate group. So those 3 would have been from me.
And a check from you? I don't,
No,
because the only $300 deposit we have was early on, like July 2nd, and everything else I've accounted for, and I just don't know.
no, and I would have shown.
So that was
your
the
name
300
on
that I
it.
didn't know.
Yeah.
There's 300 that I didn't know, but they were in July 2nd.
Was that 300?
And I just got another check for 130 from the race people. Yeah.
Well, those
Okay.
deposits early on, I think are Woody's,
Oh, yeah,
Ryland's
Yeah.
money.
they were very early. That makes sense.
But I can. We should have.
Yeah, this wouldn't have been until after. Oh,
That 1,600
well, it was-
would have included a lot of people, but we didn't
Well,
break those down.
we have a whole list of that. Dana has that list of 1,600 and that
Okay.
Lori's is not in that because that was all Melissa's collections and.
June 14th or 15th was when I got the info from her.
Okay, so you could
But,
have.
but I looked and I could not figure out where I would have wrote it, and I have no recollection. That far back. So
Okay.
I know they paid me, so if we're missing money, I will write a check for 300.
I don't ever recall getting a check from you, Lori. I probably would have noted it in here for a 5K thing.
Put down, Lori owes money.
Does anybody else have money that Lori owes?
Just tell her.
Now's the time to say so.
Yes, in fact,
So the buy sell RV, the $100 there, that was, he said, use it wherever you wanted it.
I put it in the 5K.
Okay.
Yeah, so
And
that's.
Somebody called him and said, and I gave him a t-shirt.
Okay.
So gave him a t-shirt and of course it wasn't on the t-shirt, but he said somebody called him and told him there wasn't enough room to put the buy sell RV logo on the shirt. So that's why it wasn't on the shirt evidently.
he said he didn't want it on the shirt.
He said he did when, he said, do whatever you want to, so
He said he didn't need recognition.
oh, he was probably referring to when I was there before.
Yeah,
Okay.
He
He
said-
appreciated the t-shirt though.
oh, okay, he said he didn't, You emailed me that he didn't need recognition,
Great, yeah.
and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So then I didn't put him on. I thought he was just being like modest or something. I don't know.
Okay, so I think we are missing, I'm sorry, but I think we are missing the 300 because we had the 200, I didn't count originally because I didn't know the buy, sell RV. They weren't on, I was looking at the sponsors on the shirt, but trying to reconcile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's 22 sponsors on the shirt plus Bell Mortgage. So 22 sponsors would be 2,200. Bell Mortgage was 500. That's 2,700. And I thought I was short 100 by having 2,600 in here. So I'm actually short 300. And so that would be that 300 if you, yeah,
Okay.
reckon, you know.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you. Okay, so the biggest expenses in the race then are, 1452 to Anderson Race Management, to promote the race and do the timing and all of that. So it's a big expense. They take a portion at the end of the racers. I don't know what percentage they.
No,
or-
that's it. They don't take a portion.
Well, we paid $951. I don't know what that's based on, but we paid 500 up front and then we paid $951 at the end.
That's the total.
Yep.
Like, we don't pay our full, it's not right away, you know what I mean? We pay our deposit and then 951, but it's a total of.
But we knew a 1452
Yep.
was ahead of time. Okay.
Yep,
it
that's
wasn't
on our
based on-
contract,
Okay,
that's in the contract every year, and I think I don't know why it's 1480, whatever, it's like $1,500 or whatever, but.
Okay. T-shirts were $12.91 and then $102 for some race supplies that Dana had.
And then was the $12.91, was that just my race shirts, or did that include the others?
That was just the race shirts.
Just race, okay.
Yeah, because
we broke those
498
out.
was
They
for
had-
the other
yeah.
T-shirts.
And the nice thing about that is like I have tons of little kid ones left, so we can just
Good.
use those again. Like
Mhm.
that'll be, I'm not gonna worry about who's on the back and sponsors of those for next year. We'll just use those again, so
Yep.
we'll only have to get adults.
So overall, 20 would be 29.21 in profit from the race, which would be awesome, which is awesome.
Wish Gold Rush had that kind of profit.
Well, we're together. Yeah, we're in this together. All one thing.
Yeah, contributing to the gold rush. That's
Yeah.
right. It's all like I said, it's all in the same account. We just try to keep track of it separately just to kind of see. So we have some expenses still coming in, so hopefully they'll be in for the October, so you'll kind of know what we're working with, but if it's a few $1,000s off of 20,000 and then we hold back 5,000 to 8,000, that's the kind of donation number we're looking at. 10 to 12,000.
So Alyssa, for what I put in the minutes here, we don't currently have anything in the 5K. Is that what you want, right? You had the 5K escrow.
Oh, I'm sorry, 20,621. We do have the 5K extra.
Oh, okay.
29.21.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes. The 2,000, oh, I'm sorry. It'll just be 26.21 because I don't have the 300 yet.
Okay.
2,621 in the 5K and 20,621 in the regular. account. Okay, I said it wrong. I do subtract it out when I'm doing this reconciliation. Those are the two numbers.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right. So, Gold Rush event, major takeaways, planning. Emphasis, not the emphasis, but the impact of Gold Rush construction. We'll find out more when we have some of our construction meetings and find out where the contractors are starting, where they anticipate they'll be next summer, what's their schedule like for streets. They're gonna start on the west side, they're starting in town, probably the north end, I'm guessing, but I don't know that for a fact, so. I guess that will be determined a little bit later, but that is a concern of ours as well. Just about every street is being torn up except for Minnesota Avenue. They'll be going some across it, but nothing down the lateral or down the length of it, but across it, there'll be some crossings underneath it but otherwise, just about all the streets. There's a map here that shows all the streets that are touched except for Minnesota Avenue coming down here. So 4th Street, 1st Avenue, 1st Street, 2nd Street, Center Street,
Will they all be torn up at one time?
Well, there'll be a sequential, they're not gonna, they'll start at one end, or that's what we need to find out.
But when do you think would be the earliest we would know?
We haven't had we haven't awarded the contracts, and after that, then we have pre-construction meetings, and then we start sharing our schedules and or their schedules with us and all of our important questions that we want to know, so I would imagine be sometime in October. If we award the contracts in September 21st, shortly after that.
So what's the thought then? If, let's just say hypothetically speaking, the streets are torn up during the normal gold rush weekend, do we look for an alternative spot, or are you thinking pushing it?
Well, the contract there's no construction going on the week of Gold Rush. So it's a matter of the condition they leave the streets going into that week. Those streets may all be repaired next summer, and it's not an issue. We don't know that today. But yeah, I'm not aware of a plan B.
Okay.
Well, we had talked about consolidating it into as much city property as possible.
Yeah, and we'll get through that.
Yeah,
That's gonna help with several of the streets, but yeah.
and that's a big reason why we would do that, is because we don't know what will be happening in the next 3 years.
So I know a lot of you talked to vendors, shoppers. For discussion, what were some of your key takeaways?
One of the things that I heard is that one of our major vendors, Sleepy Hollow, when I say major, she rents like 12 lots. She's from North Carolina. And her takeaway is that we are right on the cusp. She says you either are turning this into maintaining it and reaching out and maintaining it as an antique show, or this is turning into a community event. She says, I'm not saying anything negative about car shows and 5Ks, but she says it's going to be either or, and where do we want to put our focus? And I think that's one of the decisions the committee does have to address. Where do we want this to go? Because it's not going to be successful. Vendors such as herself will not be participating in those types of shows.
In a community type show?
Right.
Representative?
I think community shows are really nice. I think our major focus is that we need to maintain our Gold Rush identity. And when we had those meetings with the state, that was one of the things that they emphasized to keep that, we know what happens when a show dies, like in Byron. And when you try to resurrect it, it doesn't go well. So, but conceivably Gold Rush, if we do go that direction, we're going to be dropping down from 250 vendors to maybe 100, something like that. It's just going to be a different caliber of show completely. We still may get good vendors, but it's going to be a different caliber of show. And that's going to be where you want the focus to be.
Carol, how far down are we in terms of the number of vendors from years ago?
Years ago, Jim, it was every spot in this whole area was filled.
Yeah, wasn't it up into the?
Oh, I mean,
several hundred
I'm
vendors,
guessing
I
probably
thought.
350 or so, but there was a lot more on private property. But when the internet really started to get explosive, that's when things really started to shift a lot. And then the whole antique market took a nosedive.
Right.
I mean, that, and it still is not fully recovered. You see a lot of shabby chic type of vendors. But quality antique people,
Right.
they're still here, but there's not so many. That's just the bottom line. So, and with that in mind, maybe that helps make our decision where we want to go with this show, because I don't know, Dana had a conversation with Walnut today. And I'm not privy to that, but that's probably, if we were going to compare shows apples to apples, that would probably be the one show we would compare it with. And they still have maintained a pretty strict guideline with regard to antique shows.
It's really interesting. What they do is they vet their vendors. You have to show a picture, you have to show what
It's
you're
really
gonna bring.
strict. Yep.
And for 3 years, he hires people to mystery shop, looking for replicas, looking for
Yeah.
anything. And so it is a strict antique. There's zero anything else.
Right.
We stopped being that many years ago here.
Right.
So that ship has sailed. To go back to that would be really hard.
Mhm.
Well, and I don't think we would have the vendors to do it, to be
Correct.
honest. I
They're-
just-
they're-
I just don't think we would.
And his vendors are down. His vendors were down 20% this year.
Yeah,
Mhm.
That's a lot,
Do you know how many vendors they have?
around 300.
300 antique vendors.
Just antiques.
and
He
I
runs
think
a-
that's a generous account. I've been there.
Yeah, you could be right.
Yeah.
He runs a very different show though. They pay everybody. They pay everybody. They don't, I mean, they're garbage haulers and he kept telling me, you can't get volunteers. And I just kept thinking, but we have them. We have an
Mhm.
amazing community who
But-
comes
but-
together.
But this community per se is not, I mean, the community doesn't get anything back from it. That's part of what the issue is.
His?
Probably they don't get any
His.
volunteers because they don't, nothing comes
Yeah,
back to them like, we
Yeah.
give back to the community.
right.
And that's the big win for us, where we get our volunteers.
Yeah, I think I was really proud of us as a community,
Yeah.
hearing him talk about
Right.
his and what he has to do to get help. I was really proud of our committee and our community. So that, but yeah, so it's very different. But like I said, I think that ship has sailed as far as being a strict antique show. I wish that we wouldn't have people pull out. I know people love that, love their things. I know they didn't have a good show this year. They were probably the only vendor I talked to out of, I mean, I talked to almost everyone and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. They were the only person I heard that didn't have a good show.
Well, stuff sold, just not really the high-end stuff.
It's a
Where were
tough
they
year.
located? Where was the
Um,
Sleepy Hollow located? Like, is that in the middle of the?
Yep. They have like they have the coolest stuff every year.
They're right over by the
Oh.
church and they have a whole.
In the middle of the,
Uh-huh,
did they have the big, like,
uh-huh.
wheels? Okay.
Yeah, the balls, and then they have the big spiky,
At
the
the
ra-
huge tent,
the rattan.
yeah.
Well, they have a lot of their stuff out from under
Yeah.
their tent and they had those like huge rattan flower thingies.
Mhm.
What were
Um,
those? Just a decorative thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then they always, they get a lot of their stuff from Europe. They have a lot of great stuff, but their stuff is expensive. And
Mhm.
for the vendors I talked to this year, everybody bought smalls. They weren't buying the bigs this year. And why? Well, because we're in the middle of a pandemic and economically, everybody's a little bit more reserved, right? Like, we're not buying the big things.
Yeah, and I talked to a lot of vendors too, and what a lot of them said, it was kind of a common thread. I said, how does it compare to other years? I would ask them if they've been here before. And a lot of them said, there's buyers here this year. There's more buyers than lookers, maybe not buying as much, but the ones that are here to buy.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, yeah, I feel like I feel like they had a good show. Now, if you compare it to 2019, I didn't go
Mhm.
further back than that because one, I've only been involved since 2018. So I only have like that, but I was like pre-pandemic, how was, comparing this to pre-pandemic, how was it? And everyone said they had a really good show.
Yeah,
Except for you.
I think people made money.
I heard
So,
positive comments too.
yeah,
I think really, they didn't have a show last year or whatever, but
yeah.
I heard positive comments about,
I heard.
there's
people
one lady that's
saying-
across in front of the Brown Restaurant. She sells fabrics.
Oh,
She's
Margaret, oh,
She's
she's
from,
amazing.
She's been doing this for 26 years.
She's from Florida.
And when I was picking stuff up at the very end on Sunday afternoon, she came up because she was taking her time dismantling everything, but she came over and said, I asked her how it was going. She said, this has been a fabulous show for me. And she's been
Great.
coming for 26 years.
She's a class act.
Oh,
And I
she's-
sat and talked
She's
with
from
her.
South
too.
Florida.
Uh-huh.
And she stopped in Atlanta show coming up. This is the next stop. I don't know where she's going from here. And she just sells textiles.
Yeah.
It's all white and textile, but I heard other comments that they really had. Now, I did hear one comment. They did the people off of Second Street that do the engravings and metal, of the tractors and eagles and all that stuff. They're from Cresco, Iowa. And they had a great year last year, but it was all on website. They redid their website and their sales took off and it was really good. But that's just one approach where their website makes an impact on what they're selling. So
I had a lot of people say this was the best show ever, highest sales that I have done.
Yeah.
And very positive, very, very, very positive. So that's why when you say things like, we have to make a decision which way we want to go, part of me says, well, why? Because we're attracting different people. And maybe the people that would just come to a strict antique show may not know they really like antiques until they come to a show like this that has something for everyone. And that
Yeah.
they then see,
Yeah.
oh, I love this. I could totally see this in my home, or this was such a fun event because they had so many different things and it wasn't just specifically for one person or one type of person.
I love our show, the way we have it, because it's such a nice variety. I'm just saying that we are probably slowly going to start to lose these other vendors.
But if they
And
have
that's okay.
good shows,
Well, they aren't
when they're
having good
here.
shows. They aren't.
But it was just one.
yeah.
Yeah, but they won't be back.
Well, but that's.
Yeah.
And that is a bummer because they do have a big booth, but they come from a long way and I can't fault them on it.
No, I can't
And if they're
either.
not selling, then if they're not selling either our
not the show.
shopper, it's not the show.
It's not the show.
It's
what
not the
they
show, it's
have.
just the
What they're-
shopping base.
Well, it's what they're,
Yes.
and it's what they bring. Maybe they just brought the wrong thing for our area this year. They had some cool stuff.
Right.
But clearly it wasn't what
Yeah.
our shoppers.
Yeah, the other thing that I heard is that we, of course, and we knew this going into it, our advertising was so poor this year. And one of the major antique dealers says, you need to promote this show in like home remodeling type of magazines. She says, because that's where we sell our things. She says, get out of the antiques, out of the antique magazines and get into that genre. And I thought, well, that makes sense to me too, so.
I thought it was interesting. I had one gentleman comment that we really needed to be online and posting. And on Facebook posting, and I pulled out the Facebook page and I scrolled through, and he was like, and not just of this, but like of the river and of the pretty, and I showed him. He was like, oh, I guess I don't follow that, so I don't really know. I'm like, why are you commenting that we don't do it when we clearly do?
Oh my God, that killed me.
Yeah.
I did that too. I pulled, I'm like, oh, you mean this? I do all year.
This, as you were setting up this.
A few folks on the very last day that they were concerned about someone, a volunteer wearing a shirt that had profanity on it. And so that might be something we want to keep
Oh,
track of next
interesting.
year. It's just, I mean, it sucks to police people, but
Yeah.
or we don't, I mean, we want our volunteers to represent our community and represent our
see it?
city. I did not see it, no. They said that they were on the garbage truck duty, garbage duty.
Okay. Well, that's something we can say, do something like that, make sure we have a.
Dress code.
I mean, yeah, I guess for our volunteers. I still think we should give them all shirts and that
Yeah.
wouldn't be an issue.
Exactly. That's a good idea.
So in the conversation, this, because I understand what you're saying, Carol, too, about either antiques or the community thing. I think there's a fine line between the two. Because I do think the community events, the 5K and the car show kind of help the locals.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
But, so I don't know if, do you think, did the vendors comment about they liked those two events, or they'd like to see more of it or less of it? Because the person comes from Montana, and I had a buyer talk to me from Montana, another one from South Florida, that they were buying. And it's those people that we want to make sure
Right.
keep coming too, so they're looking for
Right.
good antiques as well.
I'm just hypothetically going to project. I think the more this turns into a community event, such as Marigold Days, we know that we don't have the same shoppers in Marigold Days as what we do in Orinoco. That's just a given. They have nice vendors over there, but it's more the mom and pop type of vendors. I think it will ultimately segue into that direction where we will have fewer vendors but I don't necessarily think it's all bad. I
Mhm.
think as long as vendors come and they still make money. I mean, we don't care how we make our money. I mean, we're going to collect our lot rent, and if they're making money, then everybody's happy.
Sure.
So I mean, socks were flying off the shelf. That's-
Right? It's-
You know, that's
Yeah.
the bottom line. I anticipate, you know, I personally like the 5K and the car show. I think it does a whole lot for community
Mhm.
togetherness. We've gotten more people involved just through the car show than what we have
Previously.
previously, as well as the 5K. So maybe it's just going to be a natural thing where the people who have the high-end stuff, they say, no, that's not quite our market anymore, and they're gonna dissipate, but then maybe we'll pull in other people too, so.
I think we maintain what we have. And
Right.
it, and even if that means we lose a vendor or two every year as far as the antiques go, which I don't want to do, but in reality, that's really what's happening anyway. Like,
It's happening in a lot of
it
places.
is, and many vendors, many of the really high-end antique dealers now too, they're not hauling their stuff anymore. You know, that's the other thing, or they don't want to set up outside.
No,
And that's been, so in 2018, when I started going around to different shows and talking to people like Junk Bonanza and Traders Market, that was what I heard. Like, we pick like one show and we don't do outdoor shows anymore. That was a
No.
big theme. That's just, you
it's just the
know,
way it is.
yeah.
And a
so-
lot of our vendors have gotten older. We lost some, the one guy from Kansas that had, 6 lots over here on the corner, he didn't come. You know, I mean, COVID impacted a few of our vendors this year.
I do think we have to remember that, and that, I
Yeah.
think we will see those, yeah, we had some people pull it last minute, we had some people,
Right.
medical procedures that couldn't make it, we had, so we
And
did
people are
have some.
just, I mean, they're getting older, and those older people were the ones that really did the antiques.
Yeah, that's true.
So then I just have a question on the people that we are maybe fearful of not having them come back is how do we as a show reach out to them to thank them for coming to, like, do we reach out to them? And is it something that we keep in contact? I mean, just thinking further along in the conversation, Carol, you have a really good connection with a lot of these people, but you may not be feeling
This is what
spot that
this
you
is what I
are,
always
so-
do. If I don't hear from a vendor and then I contact them and they aren't coming back, I always write them a very personal letter and thank them for their years of loyalty and tell them that this show wouldn't have ever been the show it is without them. And that's the honest truth.
And do you contact them like when you don't hear like right away, or do you contact them like?
Well, our
like in
deadline,
March?
our deadline date is like May 15th. And if I'm not starting to hear money back from them, like from June 15th, I never take them off the docket at that point. But that's why we start to see fluctuations in those reserved lots, but I'll give them a personal phone call, talk with them. And then they say, oh, they're vacillate. Sometimes I can talk them into coming. And then they just say, Carol, it's just too much work anymore. But, I do thank them because it's
huge.
It's huge.
Do we do anything between now and the first of the year as far as, maybe you do this already, thanking them for coming this year?
I have not done that because there hasn't been the budget to
From the
Do it-
stamps and.
do
it's
it,
time
yeah, to do another mailing, it's time consuming. It is, it's time.
How many
consuming.
vendors would we have to write a letter to?
Couple hundred.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
But seriously,
not
it'd
like-
make a big deal to reach out to
Like-
them before they're even thinking, because the more time they have to not think about how great it was, or like, we came back, we made it, like, it was a very successful event. I feel like it was full, there were a ton of people
Yeah.
there. The thing that I'm sticking out is this was my first one, I've never been part of it before. But like all of, like, our event seemed like where we set up was, smaller, but then like all the personal property just seemed like it just made it feel huge,
Right.
so. The other thing was, how do we quantify what is an antique and what is not? And are there vendors that we need to maybe rewrite in our contract? Selling flags probably isn't an antique, or like little pieces of jewelry or something. Like, what do we want it to look like? And, is that something that we can?
Flags aren't an antique, but on the other hand, we made $300. So,
Yeah, but we made $300 from a guy selling like hate symbols.
well, I
And
know.
that's we're gonna, that was on my list.
I think we're going to
talk
be
about.
able to address that issue, but normally when people sell flags, it's garden flags, it's,
Right.
Sure,
It's,
okay.
I
it's not,
understand.
I feel
nobody,
like-
nobody anticipated that,
Well.
any of us, but
Do we
sister
have
did, and I
the-
didn't listen to her.
In the contract, do we have rules around like you can't sell knives or?
we have it for guns. But I think that contract has to be looked at really closely this year, and we do have some modifications that we're going to implement. So
I
we have
think-
more of a final say on what we do
We can send
display.
we can send the current contract out to everybody.
Yes, that's what
So
I was
everybody, all
gonna
the
suggest.
committee members see the current contract.
Right.
and we can
And then you can
Come back
make
with
some,
ideas. and-
yeah, and do that. But one major vendor said, she said, if you have enough volunteers, she says, why don't you divide it up and have every volunteer just call everybody and say, hey, thanks for coming this year.
Great idea.
And I think that would probably be more meaningful.
I agree.
And they said, even if you don't get an answer, it's not a big deal, but because everybody hears their messages.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
that's
Unless
what we
I'm
do.
leaving. Yes. Here,
Can we make that an action item? Can we make
Yeah.
that an action item to do? You can provide a list of phone numbers or.
Yeah.
What it would take to pull all that spreadsheet.
Well, yeah, we'll try to get that figured out.
I think that'd be huge. I mean, that's something
Yeah, I
that
think
maybe a
it's
lot of
valid.
shows don't do. And I mean, it really does mean a lot to be part of a community that has this as an offering. I mean, I just
Right.
felt the excitement, the love, the energy was just so high.
Food
And
vendors. All of our-
yeah, all of it.
Mhm.
They were great.
I think
Fire
that-
department did great. I mean, it was.
I think we have done so much to keep this on a really personal level.
Mhm.
They like to be called by their first names
Mhm.
and they like that. They have a sense of belonging here.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I like the idea of making a phone call. I don't want to make all 200 of them. but-
No, you shouldn't have to because we're all, out there as
Yeah.
well.
Right, but I think it's a really nice touch to do that, so.
I agree. This is Christine. I totally love that idea. Maybe splitting up the list and all of us start calling and thanking. I'd like to do something to thank the volunteers as well. I don't know yet how to do that.
We used to do actually written notes with those.
Yeah, I started to talk to Melissa, but I'm giving, her some time too. So we wanted to put something together for them.
Yeah. Just a few things that I heard. I just want to these things are stuck in my head and I wrote them down on my phone. I had quite a few people ask me if we could let them in earlier on Thursday to set up. And that's because people were dropping like flies because of the heat. And so they said, we're old. We can't be setting up at noon. We have to do it earlier when it's cool. It is not safe. We cannot do it.
Yeah. My only
So
suggestion.
and that was, I'm multiple, like, I said, you're not the first person to ask. I had multiple vendors know
You make
that.
these items?
This is the feedback I'll give you on that.
Yeah.
The feedback is that if you set them up too early on Thursday, it's turned into a 4-day show.
Well, here's what I said, and I gave everybody that, and they said, who cares? Who cares? If people want to come to town and shop, who cares?
Well, that's what people were doing anyways.
They do it anyways. And
Every
then, but we don't provide security, we don't provide we don't provide any of the things. We don't provide an information booth. We don't open the city hall. We don't do any of those things. But we let the vendors in and then they can.
We can't let them in though without all of us here. We just can't. We have to have the staff on. If we start to let people come in, we have to open it up, maybe whatever time you might be thinking. If it's 8 o'clock, that means we start at 8 o'clock.
But we were all here.
Yeah.
I mean.
And the other,
Yeah.
the other end of the coin is that if we don't have our lots flagged by Wednesday night, that always was our grace period to get our lots flagged at that point. So,
Even an hour would help for sure.
I'm not opposed to it, but I'm just saying,
You get too early. No, I understand. It gets too early, then it's almost.
and then,
Day 4.
and I've heard vendors saying, Jesus, we're doing 4-day show. No, I can't stay here forever. You know, but anyway, It's tough.
It is tough, and
It is tough.
I think it's just something we need to discuss.
Yeah.
I do think the 11 o'clock would show, I mean, it was 1 o'clock. At one time, we moved it back to noon, about 3 years ago. I mean, moving to 1 more hour, just, that's a response to the vendors that can we come in earlier, and that's. I think earlier than 11 though, then it turns into, because they're set up in a couple hours and.
We have to
Some
let
people
our,
don't come
we
in
have to
till
let our
noon.
food vendors, you know, we give that grace time for the food vendors to get set up on the main drag.
Did they need it? I mean, I was just quite, like, some of them didn't, they set their stuff there and then they were like gone for the whole day. So I was like, did they, I mean, we need to have them in before,
With true smoke,
but I mean,
they put their trailer in a spot, took up half the other spot because they didn't put it in the right spot to begin with. and that's why they didn't move it. They didn't work with the vendor right beside him.
You want them to disappear.
Bacon, ice cream,
oh, yeah.
just a little cubicle, and that's all they needed, but.
Mhm.
somebody
Does
else would-
anybody entertain the idea of, we're having a Gold Rush, Rochester Gold Rush, Orinoco, is there an advantage? I know a lot of people say, yeah, we spend 1 day in Rochester and then we come to
Yeah.
Orinoco the second day or vice versa.
Mhm.
Or do we just need to look at a whole different date period? A
No,
week earlier, a week later?
Actually, it really is to our advantage, Corey,
Mm-hmm.
to have it at the same weekend, because people literally do come in from all over to shop. And
That's
that's
what
right,
I was wondering.
it's a girls' weekend. And they get the hotel, the wine, they shop, it's a big deal.
It's just you and I, Corey.
That sounds so fun. Let's do that next year.
Right?
That's perfect.
They never found any gold in Rochester
No,
unless they went to the jewelry store.
well, there's a whole long story with that side.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
The other thing is too, then we came with that was, somebody did mention, we should have a map, current map. And I agree, and I had said to Carol, I said, or maybe I didn't tell you this, but in my brain that does lots of things that it thinks the things I can't actually do. I think an interactive map on the website would be amazing. Things like that. So I agreed with them. I said, and then the one other thing they said is, we don't know what to do if there was bad weather. Like, we don't have a weather plan. We call and say, or it says on there, like, we'll alert you, but we probably should have like, and I only say this because I had to be evacuated at a concert down in Iowa once to the college, like the whole festival had to be like, so we should probably have like, here's where you go, a plan. So in our contract or in our something, we should probably have that written, so vendors know, like, community center, whatever.
And right now, the current plan, you're right, we haven't talked about it very much at all, is the basement of the Grace Lutheran Church. That's
Oh,
always been kind of the
really?
go-to place, yeah.
Oh,
I would have had no idea.
no,
Yeah.
I would never have
That's
thought
what's-
that that would be even, we'd be allowed in there.
That's part of our
That's our
contract with them.
agreement.
Carl wouldn't let you in there.
Woops.
Say that out loud.
Yeah, you can say that out loud.
Well, that's why I
He's
think
weird.
maybe we need to
But that's-
rethink that why wouldn't it be the community center? We as community, as council people, we all have access to it if we in the middle of the night had to come and then, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, the
I know
Grace used to have
only
us a
have one or
basement.
two people can probably get in over there.
Yeah.
Whereas there's a bunch of us that can get into this building.
I don't have the contract right in front of me, but I think in case of bad weather, the chairman, it's always the chairman's responsibility to notify everybody and then the community. And it's always been that point. We would go out, there's a tornado coming. These are where you should go to take, shelter.
Right, that's great, but in the night or with our vendors who are staying in their camper, you know what I mean, with things like that, or things don't always happen with tons of warning,
No.
Usually these days they do, but not always, we've learned. So it's just something I'd like to think about.
No, it is.
Going
It's a
into
good
our-
I
point.
think it's good to put it in writing. I don't
And that
know
was a
how many-
vendor suggestion, because they were thinking, like, what would we do? And I said.
That might be something we,
It would be,
with our way our relationship goes with the church, but
Yeah.
I would hope that would be a nice community gesture that we could use the basement for a fallout, or not for a fallout, but for.
Well, we could really get quite a few people downstairs if we had to, we could.
yeah,
we
Just put it in
right,
the contract, I guess what I'm saying.
Right.
So everybody vendor knows it,
yes,
and the vendors start telling their
Yes.
patrons, hey, we gotta go.
Yes.
Right.
Well, what do
Sirens
you
going.
chalk it up to? We've been lucky though. I mean, in 40 years, we've never, other than heavy rain,
Right,
had nothing, right?
right. We've had.
I mean, it's good to have a plan, but
Yeah, it's
man,
good.
It is, and as weather,
40 years, nothing's happened.
yeah,
so.
but weather we know is changing and it's going to keep getting more, these events are gonna get bigger and
Yeah.
worse as
It doesn't take much to put that in the contract in case of emergency or bad weather, use the community center for an
that's what I'm saying.
evacuation.
Downstairs, here,
Yeah.
a lot of windows, but.
Right, but still, I mean,
there's also some real creepy rooms. I don't know where they go, but they're locked up. Maybe we could open those and shove some people
Yeah.
out. Shove some people. I don't know.
Under the bridge.
There's rooms down there. I don't know where they go to, but.
So,
I'll go show you the vault sometime if you want.
oh, yeah.
There's a vault.
Yeah, we have a vault.
It will.
I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's where they keep
Why do
all
you
our
think
records.
it's not all
tin
that
records,
exciting,
so-
Dana.
Used to be the coal room for the school.
Oh, I see. I love that stuff.
Me too. So back to your planning and your map and your interactive and all of that. So I had a lot of comments on that. I had lots of questions on, do you have a map? Do you have a list of vendors and what they have? And so I think that is definitely something that we could work on. And I think the other thing that I had a lot of people ask, like, we have lot ABC, whatever, nobody knows what that means.
Right.
And people know what it means when they have been on committee for years and years, but nobody else does, and it means nothing to anybody walking down the street. So I had a lot of people say, like, label your areas. So you have Antique Alley is, behind the community center, and then each row is Antique Alley, row 1, row 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, whatever. And then label more like a grocery store aisle. So you could say, oh, they're in Antique Alley, row 4, lot 12,
Right.
whatever it is, lot A.
Mhm.
We actually had years ago names for our lots besides ABC. And then the committee decided that wasn't a good idea, but we actually, the Pine Tree lot was designated. Oh, everybody knew where the Pine Tree lot was,
Yeah, and I think it's helpful. And then I think if we had like a map type brochure where you could put that, or if you had it and we didn't even print it, if it was just like, yep, here's the QR code, people can scan it and.
I think I think it's great. It's gonna take some sophisticated programming and which involves some money.
But I don't think it would.
It's not that
I don't-
expensive.
I don't think it would take sophisticated, the way that our technology is right now,
Well,
at our fingertips,
maybe
it's,
so, Lori, and I'm not a real techie person, but it would have to merge. In order to have an interactive map, it's going to have to merge with our current software.
No, it wouldn't, because you could just, an interactive map on our website, but all you'd have to do is like, I run the
Pull
website
the
now.
vendor, to pull the vendor into that lot, it would have to interact.
No, you just literally type vendor, this is the vendor, Sleepy Hollow Antiques, this is what they have, and this is what they sell, and a picture, and then click on it, and it would pop up. It wouldn't have anything to do with your software. Two completely different things. Your
That's-
software is your software, because your website, the website currently has nothing to do with your software. There's no tie to it whatsoever.
Who's gonna, if somebody is willing to do all of that.
I do it now, and I have no idea what I'm
But
doing.
I think you're missing a big point. You don't want people to wander around aimlessly and find something they weren't looking
but
for.
part of it was.
Yes.
They do in the grocery stores, the milk and the
Yes.
good stuff.
That's why they change the aisles all the time, Cory.
However, part of it is that when you find that thing that you really like, but you
Where
wanna
was it?
keep looking around and then you have no idea where it was. And the vendor will give you a card and they'll say, we're here, we're in this.
And I think
And that
that,
happened multiple times.
and I think that Corey, that's great if our show is walkable in one day. It's not. You cannot shop it in one day if you're a serious shopper. So like, as a serious shopper that has shopped the show like the crazy person for all the years that I've been here, I would take like the Pines and that whole section, and I would do that on Thursday night. And then on Saturday, or then on Friday, all day, I would take another section. I would literally take all 4 days, because yeah, I cheated and came on Thursday, and shop this show. And the people have said multiple times, it's too big. I cannot do it.
Really?
They have asked me for they have asked me for, like, we had a lot of people asking, like, is there something we can rent? Golf carts, will someone drive me around? Like, because
I
our
heard
shoppers,
that.
if they're older, they cannot do it.
I totally get it.
And so, and even if you aren't older, you get, it's just too much. And if you, to go back to it, it's kind of like going to the Mall of America and you're like, I want to go back to that store, but oh, I'm not walking that far. Same thing.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an easy answer. It's,
I know. I think, well, it's,
But I don't think it's not hard, it's time and it's finding the right way to do it. And it's taking the data that we have. Even if we took it and went, okay, let's start with what we did this year. And we know these are the vendors, these are the websites. And all we're doing is taking and having a list. We've got that, okay? Now, let's name our places. This is. you
Right,
know,
'cause
City
currently-
Hall Central, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Putting a name with
But
it and
if you
then
take it
saying
a
that's
step
where these
further,
were.
if you take it a step further and you go, well, let's put all dish collector antique people that sell dishes and knickknacks in lot A. And let's have furniture people in lot, but you know, that, people don't specialize in one thing.
And the
usually.
vendors won't go it because they don't want it, because they've been here and this is where they know, people know where
I
to
really
find
like
them.
that idea, but we could do it just by doing it with like those little creatures of Orinoco, like the panning for gold dude and the woman, right? Like, and have like panning for gold dude Avenue and like the woman, blah, 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 I don't know, Gold Avenue, or, you know, we can come up with landmarks to do it around, because I think you're right, that the vendors that I talk to don't want to have, this is the area for so-and-so, because then there's no cross shopping.
There's
Yeah.
other shoppers.
you need to have that cross shopping, because like you were saying before, like then you find something you didn't want it. You have to have it. It would just be nicer if you could find what you're actually, because there's so many people who know what they're looking for and who's, like, I answer things all year round on the Facebook Messenger. Do you know so-and-so that was selling this? So I have, right now, I'm like investigating the person who sells stained glass off of Minnesota Avenue. The whole, like, that's what I have to find for this person. They do that all year round.
They just better shop on the internet. the hell
There's,
with
but
that.
a lot, most of our, yeah, but lots of our vendors don't have a web presence. They just have a phone number, and it's true. And so that's why I go out and talk to as many people as I can, and I get their contact information, because I know if they have something interesting, somebody throughout the year is gonna contact me and ask me about it. It's just been happening for too long not to know that.
That's a given, yeah.
And so they contact me, and if I don't have like an idea at all what they sell, like I've reached out, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes Carol, we cannot figure out what it was. And I just have to say, I'm sorry. It might have been on private property sometimes, you know,
Right. I can pretty much narrow it down if I get
if it's a city vendor, yeah.
something that,
But anyway, these are the reasons that this kind of thing would be helpful to not only our shoppers and our vendors, but to the committee and stuff too.
I really like the idea, like Lori was saying, if we put the time into it to start it up, you put it in now, do the heavy work now with maybe the current list of vendors, which what Carol has taught me this year was a lot of those vendors come back and they love their spot and they want their spot for next year. If we build some of this online for an interactive map now and do the work, then it'll get easier each year for us to switch it around when the vendors are booking. To have that interactive map that people can look at while they're shopping.
Let's take the takeaway of, we're almost looking, and maybe we are, has just an app on our phone of some
Yeah.
software that's out there already. I don't know
Probably
where
should
it's
just
at,
have
I'm
a
just asking, there's gotta be something.
On the website, yeah, and this is, I would,
We
I
go to
would,
Las Vegas convention and
Yeah.
they gotta have some type of software developed for the people that go to those large conventions
Right.
that they can,
oh, there is, and that's,
just
And-
taking time to find.
and there might be something simple out there that,
I know somebody I can call that John Deere, he's a show manager. And he puts on the shows in Las Vegas for
Yeah.
construction equipment. And I'll ask him if he's aware of any software application that can be
any website, we use,
put into an app or can be adapted, I guess.
we use
What's
WordPress, if that makes a difference, if you want to tell them, we use WordPress for
I'm sorry.
WordPress for our website.
WordPress.
Oh, WordPress, got it.
Um, The other thing that, not on this, but the other thing that I had a lot of people comment about was, I don't know which direction I'm looking here, back this way. Where the lots, where it dips down off of the street there, and actually on the other side of Minnesota Avenue is putting in a ramp so that we could get people up and down without falling. I had vendors on the ends of the rows basically saying they were running to catch people as they were falling down the
You
hill.
know, that was an issue a while back, Lori, and I'm just trying to think.
Well, I
addressed
think
it
we
with-
moved everything back a little bit, but we never,
Yeah, and there was a reason for that, because we've addressed that issue, and it was something with the city, their liability with it. We'd have to go back and dig through it, but there is a history to it, because that's been a concern for years about coming down off of that steep. That's why we did move the lots back, thinking that they would at least have that. I don't know, did we put up a fence along that area and say enter here, or, I mean, vendors, I don't know.
It-
I don't know. It's
Yeah,
been
I
an
wonder if
issue-
you
it's
could-
been an issue for years.
if you could just have a ramp, at each of the,
And it was something
I
about
believe.
handicap and handles, and
Yep.
it would be something permanent, and it would probably be expensive, we'd have to put in.
well, I had talked to Kane about it over that weekend, and he said it would not be hard to build, and you could do it temporarily and just, have basically
I think if you could build it so people take it as a driveway,
oh, well, no,
just for
yeah,
pedestrians.
yeah, like 4 feet
And
wide.
your comment was one of my comments that I started 6 years ago was, why can't we have a ramp off Minnesota Avenue for that very reason? Just
Yep.
get people to walk down
Right.
Yeah.
because you can't climb that.
Mhm. And a lot
But I
of
think if
people
it's a
won't
pedestrian,
go.
maybe it's just a temporary,
Yeah, and I don't know, there was an issue because we were going to do it, and then we were told that we couldn't do it, so I don't.
Well,
we'd have
worth
to
looking
pursue-
into it then.
It's worth looking into, absolutely.
Well, and
if it's just a pile of dirt with a small culvert,
Yeah.
one off of First Avenue and one off Minnesota.
yeah. you just
But it
build
can't be
up-
wide enough for a truck to go down. They'll
No.
complain, why isn't it wide enough? And that's not our intent. Okay.
When a vendor, one more question, when a vendor comes in and they get like their little check-in packet, I never got to see that, but do they have the numbers for like the haulers and stuff, or is that only something that volunteers have? I'm just wondering, because many people were like trying to get to their stuff and driving up and down, and it's really congested with just people coming to get their things. And I'm wondering if that is something that we could add to the vendor's packet, so they'd be able to, if someone gets like a really big piece, that the vendor would be able to say, this is, or they can't call the
I think
haulers.
I think the concept is good, but we hardly get those names until like 1 minute before.
Of who's able to come in and haul that day, oh, I
Yeah.
see, okay.
Yeah.
But we could put something in the contract. If you need help, make sure you contact the information booth upon your arrival or something like that.
For,
Because that's typically when we find out who's going to be able to help.
Well, they usually do
Well,
tell the
for the-
shoppers that, and then the shoppers call us at the info.
Okay, they do, okay.
Yeah, yep, and then they're like, we need a hauler, yeah.
right,
But to that same, what you just said, there isn't a check-in packet, it's actually their contract that they just keep and bring with them. Now, that being said, many of our vendors this year, and I think it's because they do other shows, they've been with us a long time, they couldn't remember. Remember how many people were reaching out to me about when they're gonna get their packets, Carol? It was interesting. So they were looking for that second mailing, which we eliminated. But people who've been with us for a long time, if they go to a lot of shows, they mix them up. They expect some communication about their check-in. Because when they sign that contract, or when they get that contract, it's in the spring. We're
It's
in
in the
August.
spring.
Who keeps a piece of paper?
we
around
always
that
did
long?
we always did a second mailing in July.
So
And,
we should have something. We talked about that. That was actually a request when we talked to some people when you and I did that in 2019. We went around and talked to people. That was a request then. We did it to have something,
it could be as simple as a postcard, maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. We do have to revisit that and it would. Or, I still think, I know not everybody gets email, but I still think we need to do more email campaigns to our vendors. And if they don't get it, they don't get it, but that's on them. We're still communicating. I still think more communication is better. If they don't get email, it's not our fault.
We did send out quite a few emails this year. I mean, I did do that.
With the contract, with the
Right,
contract
informa-
reminder?
Right, right,
Okay,
yeah.
well then,
But you
Yeah, I
know,
had multiple people, well, we forgot our piece of paper, we don't know where we're going.
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
I don't know
So yeah,
how,
maybe it's another, a talking
it's-
point for a different, just to see what it is, like, what do you get, or, you know, just so if they're asking, like, where am I supposed to go, what am I supposed to do, am I supposed to check in with Carol, like, it just, you know,
And there was a lot of new vendors too,
there were.
right, right, and
But
it
still.
would be nice, so.
there's some responsibility.
In that, so Gene from Walnut, he had a really good idea. He actually splits his show into 8 sections. And he has a group leader in
Yeah,
each
we did that
section.
too.
That's a vendor,
Yeah, we did that too.
and then that vendor is, yeah, and that's
And you
it.
know what happened?
They got in fights.
You know, I love that concept. And that person was the organizer for like each lot.
Yeah,
Well, then, Dina, I'm your friend. Can I get in a little
yeah.
bit? And, oh yeah, you know, and so.
Well, and that's
we
actually
had
what.
a nightmare on our hands.
And that is actually what he does. He gives them
Yes.
their lot for free and he lets them in, set up early. So he can help let other people, so they help other people set up.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't have to be a vendor. We could have one of us or a community volunteer just be in charge of one section of the show. Like you have just your section, which would make sense so that we're not all just driving around like.
You kind of
Isn't
do
that
that.
right?
did on
I like
Thursday.
driving around.
We did that on Thursday. You
It
weren't
happened on
there.
Thursday afternoon, we were
Huh?
setting up.
When they're setting, yeah.
Yeah, he's already assigned.
So that was
We
nice.
assigned people to
Okay.
different lots.
I
That
missed-
was nice.
I
Yeah,
was
you weren't
putting
here
moving
that.
my kid into college.
I think you were off Thursday, right?
Yeah, I was.
But every lot
We had-
did have somebody, a committee member.
So
assigned
there
to
was
it.
that. Okay.
And it was helpful.
So then
I'm
that
glad.
is when they didn't have, those people then that were new and didn't have a place to go, did have somebody there to guide them.
Yes, so
Yeah,
there
it
was one
continued through the
person in
week.
each.
For the weekend, but it was there Thursday.
But I would
afternoon.
say that the people that I helped on Thursday that were like, I don't know what to do, I don't know where my electric is, like the Rocket Barbecue guy. I talked to him all weekend because of that.
Right.
Sure,
Because,
yeah.
and he was like, Lori,
Yeah, it
Right.
develops a rapport.
yeah, come
Yeah.
have some samples and.
Totally,
this
free
and this
popcorn in the whole 9 yards. I like loved the popcorn person over here. She's great.
We do too.
A couple
Yeah,
years ago,
she's
the
awesome.
Ice cream trailers down in Minnesota was up on the corner by the car show. And I helped him set up, line up and everything, you know, and it was very nice, just like that. Hey, you want an ice cream cone?
Yeah.
Every time you walk by.
But that's what they love. They
Yeah,
love
it's
it.
so good.
They just love it when they know somebody. Yeah.
Okay, let's kind of, great discussion. I think we need to keep moving or
Absolutely.
get these things in our minutes and we can continue the discussion, but there are just a couple of things. The next item is just, it's important as well, and we should spend a little, I think everything else is kind of, we can continue to talk about the updates and, but the succession planning for Carol. And we mentioned back in July or June, we knew we was gonna have to have those discussions, so we need to seriously start thinking about that and how we're going to approach that, and I know Carol has done a fabulous job, and it's gonna be hard to replace her, or whether it's maybe one person, 2 people, or whatever the case may be, so I know that you've had some conversations with some of the committee members and
Well, Joanne has really been super helpful. And she's the most familiar with the things at this point. I don't know if she wants to say out loud whether or not she's willing to make. I know we've talked more part-time than she and Kevin are just segueing into retirement, so, and I don't know what what she wants to do. I think what I would like to do is who's ever interested, I'd like to sit down and give them the job description. And tell them what it entails and who's going to do what, because it's pretty hard if you haven't been fully involved in all aspects of it.
sure,
It's,
you really can't have meaningful discussions in the committee either, because we have a
Right.
whole bunch of other subjects to take
And-
care of.
And you know what I always tell people, it's, you have to love Orinoco and you have to love the show because you don't do it for the money. Because it doesn't break down for that at all, you know, you just have to do it because, you know, you love the town and you love the community and you want it to be successful. So, but I think if the committee could identify a couple of people, you know, that we can sit down and talk and, you know, if Joanne says, yeah, I'd like to do it, but this is how much time I want to put into it. Well, then we can kind of look at how much time we can do and what other duties will have to fall back to the committee then. You know, you picked up a huge chunk for me this year, contacting, you know, taking care of the Arctic ice and, you know, just reaching out. There's a lot of loose
There's a lot of
ends.
different,
There's a
a lot
lot,
of other logistics more than just vendors.
right,
Vendors is a whole world by itself and
yes,
everything else is contracts.
right. So, but I think that's what we need to identify as those individuals that really want to be a part of it. And then start to work with it, because ideally by the end of the year, I would like that person, those people to start. Because we kick off in January. We start putting advertising in February and we need to have those individuals in place. And maybe when we sit and start talking job descriptions, maybe we're going to say one person's vendor, one person's this, one person's something else, you know.
And that is how Walnut is going to pass on their show.
Yeah.
He said he was literally writing a book, a handbook, and he is splitting it up into different areas.
Yeah.
Like this group is, this person's gonna handle this, and this person's gonna handle this, and I think that is a good idea. The issue is that when you have a revolving committee, that becomes tricky.
It does become tricky. It does become, and I think every time you get a new member, you know, when Corey first came on, we sat and talked for an hour on the phone one day because he didn't have the background for it and the reason and the explanation for it. I mean, he's just one person, but over 30 years, I've done that with, I can't tell you how many.
Oh, yeah, you
people.
did it with me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and why do you do it this way? And
Mhm,
why do you have to do it this way? And that's not what I understood. You know? So I mean, you carry a lot, there's so much baggage that comes into this that people don't always understand, but I just want the people who do it to be enthusiastic, to love it. And Joanne would be a perfect person because she's at the right age. She's got a lot of longevity with the community. And she loves the show. I mean, that's evident by Kevin and hers participation over the years. So it's just identifying that other person who really wants to do it. And the other tricky part of it is that we are not, our computers are not networked. So there's going to have to be one person that pretty much takes care of the vendors. Because we financially are not in a situation where we can network a computer to different locations.
I think there's, I mean, we did a lot of work this summer on our own computers, you know, so I
Yeah.
think you're right, the event coordinator should be just the event coordinator for vendors,
Period.
and all the other logistics can be taken care of with letters and.
Yeah.
We talked, one idea is breaking those, because we know what they are,
Right.
and we just, either we assign those to committee members and they take on the responsibility for, there's plenty of background information to contact the people that need to be contacted. We're not really setting up new, except for maybe porta potties. There's a lot of enthusiasm there that came back from, but they're an hour and a half away from us, so.
Yeah.
My predecessor, Ed Simon, he did strictly vendors. But we had so much rotation in the committee and not enough committee members that jobs just weren't getting done. So then things just kept falling onto my plate. And so, and it was easier for me to do it than to wonder if it was going to get done.
Okay.
So question
With
on that,
computers now, I think that's, you know, I mean, nothing against,
I mean, you and I
Time frame.
mean, I'm sure your wife probably got fed up with me. I says, I'm married to your husband this whole summer, but
She said, yeah, I know it.
yeah, but I mean, you have to be in such close communication with your
Right.
chair and with your co-partner, it's just critical. Because there's always an exception to. Sometimes, me and Joanne and I have talked about it, but when you've had a vendor coming here for 20 years and they're the heart of the show, am I gonna cut them a little grace? Absolutely. In order for them to come back. Those are the things that you talk about
Yeah.
and you make it work.
And that's where we hope that however this works out, and you've agreed to do to help mentor
Yeah,
this next year too. So not everybody's being thrown to the wolves here, so.
no,
So
I
you'll be there to
absolutely.
answer those questions and share that background with all of the
Yeah.
vendors. And
I love it and I want to be a part of it. I don't want to walk around with that phone in my back pocket 24 hours a day, It's just, and I don't click all the boxes all the time anymore. I'm getting older, so. It happens.
Okay. Well, those. Either I can reach out to the committee members and ask who would be interested in following up, or just contact Carol yourself and. Because I think,
Joanne has a computer. We're at the point now where we have to get the show set up for next year. I usually do that now in October. And that's where everything gets turned over and then we start to make the balls turn for next year. So I'd like,
strictly from a vendor standpoint.
right. And we have to get the show reset in the computer because right now we're just showing but the vendors from last year that are paid. We have to get them all into a reserve basis. So
So do you do that or do you ask John Rask?
John will do that, right? Because that takes a little bit of some sophisticated programming to get it all set up. But then at that point, we're ready to rock and roll. I'm already booking vendors for next year, but I'm just putting them in as a reserved,
Or, yeah.
so we don't lose them. And I'm putting them in an arbitrary lot and tell them, you don't necessarily have to be married to this lot, but it's going to ensure that you get a contract. So.
So
But there's a
that
lot
gets-
of things that we're going to have to do. If we have to move lots and vendors, it's gonna be a lot of communication.
Yeah, because
and-
we are talking about reorganization
Right.
or consolidation, I guess is probably a better word for it.
And maybe those phone calls would be best put off until we know in October, maybe, that say we are putting in, sewer this year. And we just want you to be assured we're going to have a lot for you. It may not be in the same location, but it's gonna be as close as possible. We'll be sending you out a
The ones
map.
on the right of ways.
I think
Right.
one of the things we have to tell people, because when I worded it this way, so specifically our friends in the Pines,
Yeah,
they do not want to move.
no,
But they also got a lot of people like feedback that if the parking situation is the way that it is, like they're not up with that. They like don't want to pay to have their car right there. They need, like they just ran into a lot of stuff with the church. So I'm hoping that's okay because there are multiple along that route that just said,
I heard about that too.
I'm not doing it. Like, I'm just not doing it. So.
Pay to park inside? Or what you're
Well, like
saying?
the church was just so harsh with them, like where their stuff was and if they were, like say they let some people go over their spot, they let, then they pushed other people back up into their area. So I'm like, that whole, the Pines is like,
we're not user
Oh, the
friendly.
vendors amongst
Ooh, right.
themselves.
no, the church with the
And
vendors.
when we say the church, you know who we're talking about.
I mean, they were like patrolling like inside and some vendors that got kind of cushy friendly with them, they would let them have more space. And so it was like they would pay to have their car and they could put their car a certain way and then their stuff could come up farther. Well, that's not anything we did. But then other vendors are like, well, we want to do that too, but we don't want to pay it was just silly.
It was,
Like, so I'm like, is there, they love being in that area. It's shaded, it's lovely, but it's just, I
it
don't know if
that
there's.
may all change depending on how this sewer goes.
Right, and
Right.
I think that when I talked to a few of my friends over there who have been there forever and they don't want to leave, I said, but everyone would. So it's not just like your
Okay.
lot would be gone, you know what I mean? You wouldn't be here, nobody would be here.
Right.
So then that changes it. Like, it's not
That's
just
true.
me, it's everyone. And she's like, oh, well, that's true. So that's how we have to approach that, that we
Right.
wouldn't, and you know what? We can't, it might not be as close, it might not be anywhere near there. They might all be down here.
That's right.
So we can, I don't think,
Yep.
I think we should be careful about promising things that we can't foresee which streets will be torn up. We can't foresee which,
That's true, Dana.
and we have to do some serious, we have to have some serious talks about how much money we are spending to use the lots at Grace Lutheran, and if it's worth it, because it's just right now, between the amount of
We
the amount of
spent,
money
we
we
wrote a check for like
spend,
$2,500.
the amount of money we spend and the way our vendors are treated,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's,
Worth it.
it doesn't add up to me.
No, I think where there's other space that we could move people off of, but you can't start to move people until we know what we're dealing with.
Right.
Yeah.
But I did, when I talked to, especially to people who I have a relationship with, I did let them know things will be, we're gonna have to get creative. That's how that's how I approached it. I said, we're going to have to be creative over the next 3 years because of the big project. And I said, things might look a little different for a little bit.
But we have some great space. We have everything out here in the court.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of space down
Yeah.
here and we've got streets that we can
100%.
utilize.
Mhm.
I
We do.
think we can live without the church.
I do too. There's streets.
Good.
So just be clear when you say we're not doing the church, but the right of ways are still in play.
Right.
Well, no, not over there. If the streets are impacted.
If the streets are impacted, but you know, how do
Well,
you
I mean,
make
from the
those?
construction, but in general,
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking about the lots along the alley on the Pines out.
those are the church. On the
That's the-
alley, those are the churches.
But we still have the right of ways on
On
the
the
three
other
sides
three
of the Pines.
sides. Yeah.
And then on Second Street, that goes through the north side of the parking lot, we still have those lots. We don't have anything at that diagonal that goes between in front of the church down to East Center Street. Those are the ones we are thinking about moving to.
Yeah, I can,
In the church parking lot, I think we have to just.
yeah.
My personal opinion is, and I get that people like it and I understand that it's been this way for years and years and years, but at the same time, we had so many lots over here that weren't filled and people
Oh, yeah.
that complained about having so few lots here. And we have plenty of space
I think so too, Lori.
to say,
Mhm.
we're not gonna use the right of way here, we're not gonna use the Pines, we're not gonna use the church parking lot because we don't need to. And this $2,500, $2,846, we could use that somewhere else.
And that was for 60 lots.
Mhm.
I think that was-
We get a flat fee
Yep.
up to 90 lots.
And then we get badgering about
Right.
charging.
We make absolutely no money on any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then we're badgered about,
And not just us, our vendors are.
Yeah.
badgered.
I think they don't want us there. If they wanted us there, they'd say, we love you, we love Gold Rush, use our space, this is a great
I
community
think they,
event.
you know, and I think overall, there's a lot of people in the church that do feel that way. I think there's it's been poor leadership that has allowed one individual to be pushy.
So can we proceed, or how about if we? If Carol and I will sit down and start moving stuff around with that understanding and come back to in October with a plan of how we can start to move vendors out of the church parking lot and the Pines. We need to start talking about this now. And so we might as well just
Mhm.
identify where they worked this year and
Well,
assuming those that didn't have a spot are there, that we're just moving the ones that were there this year some other place.
well, and also think of when you're doing that, what city property are we not taking advantage of?
Mhm.
And maybe.
It's D&E for sure,
Mhm.
D&E, and I
and
think,
part of a
Lot
slope.
B up by the Lions, is that?
Mhm.
That's where
Well-
our car show is at.
That's where the car shows are.
but
And that's pretty much it for our properties. And the right, we got the right of ways on Minnesota Avenue and
E-lot isn't real popular for vendors because it's too much of a hike.
Right.
Right. It is, that one is tricky.
This is tricky.
Um,
There was a time when there was a lot of people up there, but it ended up being a lot of junk.
so what's the deal
Nobody
behind the
wanted it.
post office? Can we
Huh?
add another couple rows of vendors behind the post office to the
We
east?
did at one time, we had those like 2 or 3 of them, but that is always contingent on
That's what-
the postmaster,
oh,
because that's rented property. I mean,
Travel the grass.
depending on, if CJ was there, yeah, put him in there,
right. Right.
The postmistress in Pine Island now made us move out Monica Mitchenfelder's bench because she didn't want it sitting in the post office anymore.
Oh,
So it's a whole different flavor.
okay.
But there's nothing preventing us from putting a fence. I'm not sure they're concerned about people walking through the parking lot on the north side for access or.
Yeah, that's totally off limits of their parking.
No, but I'm saying we can put fences around that so people can't walk through that area.
Yeah, I don't know if they, that's never,
No, we would do that. City would do that.
yeah, that's never been a real big
Mhm.
issue though.
Yeah,
I think we need to fill this whole
Basketball
space,
court, yeah.
because none of this is used up here.
No, okay.
This is the complaint I've always had on this lot. When it rains, it's terrible. And vendors soak in. And it's really been, if it rains and they have a heavy load, it's terrible. That's why they love the blacktop.
I get that, and I get that, and I think that we could maybe, for the people who especially who have the heavy furniture, Kevin Hackney, people like that who have to get the big, heavy furniture, I totally understand how that would be a big issue, and maybe that's when we use blacktop here.
Yeah.
Or I had thought this in my brain between next where Carol used to live here and Penny's house, and then the old Mitchenfelter property, the White House. That street, you can access your homes still by not having to use that street. So that whole street could be shut down. The street could be used as just vendors. We can rethink the way we use our streets.
A lot of shows do that, Dana.
Right.
They use the whole street.
Instead of the
Mhm.
right of way, we just use the street.
Just like we're using Minnesota Avenue.
Yes.
Mhm.
So I'm
So
thinking,
when the ambulances need to get in and out,
You can't use
That
Minnesota
becomes a
Avenue
problem.
because
well, no,
that's,
it wouldn't,
yeah,
because
you can't use that one.
no, we wouldn't use Minnesota Avenue, but they wouldn't need to go
Yeah.
because there's nobody like, you could get there and then you could go the other way. And, we wouldn't be able to have the continuous round one way, but we probably won't be able to anyway because the streets will be torn up because of the sewer project. So it'll just be, it's gonna be a lot of creative thinking. That's what I told the vendors. It's just we're gonna have to get creative and this isn't me. Yeah, and ask for some grace
well,
for. a few
and I've
years.
asked Carol this before about expansion and, why not whatever it is, the city.
Oh, I love that idea.
I mean, I know it's insurance blanket only covers X amount of,
I don't think, I think we could put vendors down there, Corey, but there's no electricity for food vendors. That's the big thing.
That's, Corey, when I got on the committee, that's the first thing I said is, can we have it at the park instead of in the town?
that's a comment I've heard from a lot of people that go to Rochester and they come here and they love it because we have shade trees.
Yeah.
And we're open, we're not in a barns and sheep sheds that smell like sheep and goats and animals.
Well, they like it.
I
But
think,
they like the sheds because you don't know what the weather's gonna do.
yeah.
So, but like you said, utilizing property we already own.
Mhm,
Then I think we would probably have to take the show completely down there.
mhm.
And maybe that's not all bad. We would not have as many vendors. But then we would have to spend some money for electricity. Or get those portable generators that come in and you can
Spend
do
some
that.
money and run some electricity in there.
Yeah.
Quit building the walls and put some real infrastructure.
He's never gonna hear the end of those walls.
What'd you
That
say?
kind of blew your budget for a year, didn't it?
I can't win.
I know.
I love it.
Okay,
Great.
again, great discussion. So there's just a couple things I just want to touch base on. I apologize, this one wasn't on the agenda, but I hope you allow me to add it, is that John Rask, two things. John Rask is our computer go-to guy. And typically we'll pay him $300 a year
It's been averaging out about that, and we haven't
We
paid
haven't
him for a
paid
couple
this
of
year.
years, yeah.
for work he has done or what we're going to ask of him in the next month or
Right.
so. Make a motion that we pay John $300 for computer tech work.
Second. Lori.
Did you hear the motion to pay our computer tech guy?
Yep.
Okay. It's well worth the money and we can't get a better deal than John and we need to.
I will be resetting the show and then setting up Joanne's computer.
Sean Rasky?
Rask,
RASK.
and it's JON.
Thank
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Hi.
Last item is a follow-up with Carol's pay. Earlier this year, we talked about the $2,000.
It was all taken care of. I'm fine.
Really?
Yeah, I'm fine. We're good. Totally good. Right, we're good. We're good.
Okay, one more time. But that's not the total amount,
No, we are, we're good, we're good.
like, not for the whole year, though.
Yeah, we're good. We wrote a check, we made sure we had enough money toward the end of the show, and I wrote a check
Okay.
and Joanne got paid and I got paid and we're in good shape.
Okay, well, thank you for whatever arrangements were made there, but
Yeah, we're good.
you're
Every-
more than well deserving of it. I
Yeah,
hope it's all
well-
taken care of, so.
Nobody goes hungry. The bills are paid.
Well, we got brownies, you can take those. ones, too.
And water in the basement.
Yeah. Yeah, so,
Okay. Rest of these things we can follow up next month. There's nothing, we hit the real key subjects tonight, so
Yeah.
thanks for your time. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second, Lori.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
7:30.
Aye.
Thank you.
John.
Thanks, CJ.
Thanks, Christine.
Thank you. You guys have a good night.
Brownie.
Somebody's got to eat one for me.
Four, there's five, there's two, there's one left.
I should bring some
Of
to
course I can.
Melissa tomorrow.
There's only one left.
Okay, I will
There goes Lori.
save.
Is that a bill?
It
Take it
well,
home,
it
Lori.
is, but here's. the
Oh,
thing.
God.
So I had to buy the.
I'll take half. I don't want all of it.
Okay.
Does somebody want some? Anyone?
I'll take a couple.
You want to take one home to Christine?
Well, I want to take some to Melissa. I'm gonna bring her food.
You guys, listen, I don't.
But why don't
I
I?
don't want those, right? You guys take it.
Is it too messy if I just paid $200?
All right.
This will be happy food for
And
her
then
if you have
you
taste
don't have to
buds.
pay me back for this.
It doesn't have COVID, it's just pneumonia, but.
Oh, instead of that for the
Good
5K.
girl.
Is
You
it too
know-
messy to do that?
Does it need to come?
Yeah.
Probably this would be show expense, so it would be a realistic amount that we would probably have to do. So,
It's this, paper, pom.
I did,
Two papers.
I did get a request for a donation already from Pine Island Area Home Services.
so two of them?
Because they sent a letter.
1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 4. There's.
Is that,
$1,000 typically.
255.
Is it, who sends it?
And how many?
Rosemary? Rosemary used to be in charge of that, but she's not anymore.
Sandra, Grinnell.
Okay.
All right. We'll make sure you get a check,
Do I have your personal phone number again?
271-6697.
I need to, I'm a bad record keeper, but I have stuff written down for the car, so did you get
Christine, I'm
any
gonna close the
checks
meeting.
mailed in? You did.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
Here.
I showed some. I had the, but it was maybe like 10, 15.
Yeah.
It wasn't didn't amount to a hill of beans.
That's all it is. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I got some stuff scratched down, but I gotta find the receipts. My wife said she emailed me the receipts. I can't find them. We know what we spent
Yeah.
to make the dash plaques and the
Right.
trophies.